Yair Klyman, welcome to Jewish Money Matters. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on, and I love your energy. I love everything about you, and I love the show. And it's really like a bracha to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have so many ways that we think alike when we think about, money and helping people in this big area of their lives. You are the founder of Klyman Financial. You work with your father, David, right? And you advise mid to high net worth individuals build generational wealth, a very important topic and something that I really admire about the things that what you're doing in sense out in the industry, in the financial services industry, is that you also are a big advocate for financial literacy. You help ambitious professionals build this generational wealth, not just by providing typical traditional financial advice, but also by really starting with the foundation, with the fundamentals, which is financial literacy. It's really admirable. Now, before we talk about all that, you're also an IDF veteran. So I'm really curious, at what point did you decide, Yair, that you're embarking in the world of personal finance? Why don't we start by you connecting the dots a little bit for us so we can kind of trace the journey?
So I started my life in just like the yeshiva background in Teaneck, New Jersey, and then all of a sudden, 18, you realize that you don't really have a lot of identity, and you try to go find yourself. So we typically send for a gap year. I went to a gap year in the Golan Heights,
Mm-hmm.
and I found this connectivity amongst the Jewish community that I never saw before. I was like a farmer. I was like a hippie. I would like shave my head. I would do weeks of silence. I did all this other stuff. And it was a crazy thing from a Teaneck, New Jersey kid. And then I went, you know what? Like, there's a time in your life that you're able to actually take action, and there's moments in time that God puts you in a place. Like in the Golan Heights, I've never been to Israel before, never been
Mm.
before 18, and I went, you know what? Let's try something new then. And I went to the army. I served on the Gaza border. I met all the Beirut people. I met this. I met that. I met all this other stuff. And I always just thought, okay, that was something cool I did, and I moved on. Then 12 years later, I got October 7th happen, and all of a sudden I never spoke about the army. I just never spoke about the army.
Wow.
And 12 years later, around 11 years actually, sorry, I get this October 7th news, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, what just happened? I start remembering everything that happened in the army. And I have this very, thank God, very successful business, and a multi seven-figure business. I started from zero, was able to bring my dad into, and I went, let me just turn my resources and turn my energy into Jewish advocacy. So I went on
Mm-hmm.
Fox and Newsmax and the podcast, and we did the largest Torah dedication U.S. history on October 7th just a few weeks ago. And we just it's always I've always been an advocate for people. I've always been an advocate for my identity. So tying that into finance, we grew up with no financial literacy, and we had a stack of credit card debt like this. We had very serious struggles. We had to go through an organization called Project Ezra, who was like the most amazing organization in the world. So we went from this, like, one thing is fighting for the underdog, and then also being the underdog at the same time. So fighting for the Jewish community and being the underdog for the Jewish community, and fighting for people who don't have financial literacy, which is really the underdog community. That the
Mm-hmm.
wealthy, why do the rich get richer? Because they know how to be rich. Why do the
Right.
poor get poorer? Because they know how to be poor. So
Right.
so it's I always try to strive and fight for that. So what I did was I launched this advocacy platform, and I get reached out all the time. And I will say, before I even speak about what I do on that side, but the most educated, and you would know this, and I'm sure a few of your listeners know it too, the most educated of all the speeches I've given and all the financial literacy courses I've given, and talking about hundreds, is the Chabad community in Brooklyn and Crown Heights.
Mm-hmm.
They are the number one. I've spoken in Fortune 500 companies. I've spoken in Brooklyn, Queens, California, New Jersey. It doesn't make a difference. Chabad, number one by far.
Wow.
Not even a comparison. They're like, why are we even talking about a Roth IRA? It was like kind of funny. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my background. I will continue to fight for the Jewish community. I have fired vendors who have not been pro-Israel and pro-Jewish for not making a stance. Instead of canceling me, I cancel them. But that's my back.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 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 wow. What an impressive story. And I've been following how you have really incorporated your advocacy work into your social media and in such an incredible way. Now, you come back from Israel, presumably what, at age 20? When do you come back?
I came back at 21 years old.
21 years old. When do you decide, okay, I'm starting my own business, I'm going into the world of money? What is that like?
So my parents did not give me money for a lot of my Israel trip. I was gone for 3 years. So I went from 18 to 21. So I didn't have any money. I owned this Cisco stock. I'm not endorsing the stock, but I owned this Cisco stock. And I looked online, like if Apple's going to do well, Cisco will probably do well. So I was like, let's buy Cisco. And then I
Uh-huh.
sold it and I traveled on that for 3 years. Like I lived on my own. I worked in restaurants. I did all this other stuff. And I went, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to afford this lifestyle and I have to pay for it myself. I number one, I don't like to ask people for favors. I don't, and my parents didn't have it. And I'm very
Hmm.
grateful of that. So I had to go through college. So I went, all right, what are older people when you're young? What's the constant look? You look at older people. What are older people doing? So when
Hmm.
you're 14 or 13, you go, where are older people making money? They make money in restaurants. So I worked in restaurants. What are older people? They were in fitness. Like I tried to get from 25 an hour to 70 an hour. So they were making money in fitness. So I had a
Hmm.
personal training business
This
in
is when you
fitness.
come back to New York?
I come back to New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
Don't tell the New Yorkers I live in New Jersey first. But I come back to New Jersey and then I'm like, my brother's in fitness. I was like, you know what? Let's go be a personal trainer. But I don't really care that much about fitness. So I figured out a way through Facebook to have over 80 clients. I was making about 100 grand a year in cash while I was in college, working about 15 hours a week in training.
I love it.
And that business, one of my clients was like, this guy's insane. And I tend to believe that. And and he's like, okay, I have this financial services business. You want to take it over? And he had no daughters. He looked like a homeless shelter and not a purpose in the whole thing. And he just like basically brought me into the business, gave me the path, and it's been great ever since.
What? This is a crazy story. This is
It's
a
a cra-
twist that I
it's a
never
crazy
knew.
yeah, it's a wild story, and I'm very fortunate. And we like thank God has given us amazing ability to help and empower people. And I'm right now trying to fight for the Jewish community every single day, and also try to keep my business growing.
Amazing. So this man takes you under his wing. You start learning the business. You finish college. Um, you take you get your CFP. What happens? How do we get from that point where you have this small business,
Correct. Yeah. Now it's a pretty
and then
it's a
you
mid
build it up?
business. Yeah, I was the number one on the life insurance side when I first started. I was the top five youngest, like of my age bracket, youngest producer in the entire country of the like
Hmm.
25,000 agents.
Hmm.
Um, because I realized one thing in a small business,
Hmm.
there is nothing matters if you cannot bring in revenue.
Right.
Nothing matters. Everything is replaceable. You can replace your product, you can replace your service, you can replace this, you can replace that. But if you can bring in business, then you can control your narrative.
Right.
And I never wanted to be when you go through financial trauma, like many people have, and you understand it too. When you go through financial trauma, you never want to be in that position again. So you want to take back control of your life. So
Hmm.
what I realized was I need to bring in revenue. So I figured out a way through Facebook to find. Facebook had this great algorithm, and they closed it, but it worked for me at the time. That you can type in friends of Yael who are in
Hmm.
between the ages of 40 and 50 that live in Tenafly, New Jersey, that are Israeli.
Okay.
And then if you had enough connections with them, you can directly message them and it will go directly to their inbox. So I figured out how to do that. And I did it with hundreds and hundreds of people. And I built my personal training business. When I first got into the financial services business, I went, okay, let's do this on LinkedIn. Why can't I do it on LinkedIn? So what I did was I connected with all these people over time and I had enough connections. And then I started direct messaging them
Hmm.
to and created a funnel for people for relationship building. Like I literally systematized relationship building and
Hmm.
you systematized it into how can they eventually be your client. And I was given some great piece of advice that I hope your listeners would do too. When you're first starting your business or you're first trying to get money goals, I was given a my coach at the time, because I always found good mentors. I wrote a check to myself dated the year from that day of $250,000.
Mm.
And you manifest 250. I didn't know what manifesting was until like a year ago, but you
Mm-hmm.
manifest that. And then once you get to 250, you write 500, then 500 a million on and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a really, really great piece of advice that I got right from the beginning, just to really push myself. And that's when people say, oh, I want to start a business, but I don't know who to talk to. There's a
Mm-hmm.
world of LinkedIn of millionaires, thousands and thousands of millionaires sitting on LinkedIn waiting to make quality relationships like me and you.
You know, I'm very happy that you mentioned it. I had a guest on the show a while back. I think it was Hannah Mason who talked about this idea that why are we not asking, right? Most people who have built some sort of success in their business or wealth building or whatever it is, they are happy to give you advice and mentor you. Why are we assuming that the answer is no? It's actually coming from our ego. But really, if we put that aside and we open ourselves to what's out there from God, there's wisdom and knowledge that people have acquired, we can actually have a tremendous amount of access, and people are very happy to give it to us.
I think so. And also I found it that the people I would mentor, I also tried to figure out what would they like in the equation.
Yeah.
So I had this really successful fitness client of mine, and I was also one thing important that when you run a business that leads to another business, it is crucial, crucial, crucial to take the relationships you have with that business and make sure they know that on the next business, they're going to be your liftoff point.
Oh, yes.
So even if you're working in restaurants and you're making relationships and you can start having conversations. So that's one thing that's really, really crucial. But exactly what you're saying is we have to ask, but and people would like to mentor, but you have to be very careful on what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
If me and you can have a conversation and I can make you money and I make crumbs, but now you mentor me. How valuable is that?
Right.
Instead of just asking for a favor. So
Right.
so saying to somebody, let's say another, if you're in I don't know, tire sales, and you find another tire salesman that you really is like your mentor, and this is the person that you really want to be like. So you say to him, how about this? I'll bring you business and we'll share business. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden they're going to mentor you because number one, they're making money. They know the more they can grow you, the better they'll be. The and they want that. And they're also typically good people if they do accept mentoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's very good advice, and you're touching on something that is actually sometimes often overlooked, which is at least I went to business school. I got my MBA at NYU, and I definitely was not part of the world of Wall Street then, or the world of MBA, MBAs back then, and that is the human side of business. When you talked about the fact that you can take those relationships with you. It's not just transactional. It's not because I was just your fitness coach one day, I end this relationship. These are relationships that I'm building for for the sake of the relationship. And yes, there's going to be opportunities to do business together, but sometimes that gets lost in the business conversation. It becomes very transactional, and we forget that this is all about human interaction and human connection. There's a human on the other side.
So if you want something tangible,
Yeah.
just for the listeners, something tangible, text them every time it's their birthday. Text them
Mhm.
every single time it's a holiday. I have clients of mine, no joke. I have not done a shred of business with them. I trained them in personal training probably 2014. So we're talking about 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and I still text them on their birthday. I still text them when I have like on Rosh Hashanah. It's not hard. You can automate most of it. It's very easy. Just put them on your list and just remember to make an Excel spreadsheet of all the people that you text on Rosh Hashanah or on the New Year, or write down their birthdays and have it automated, or send out whatever. Email's a little impersonal, but like, you want to turn transaction into relationship, do the work of relationships, and
Yeah.
relationships that it matters to people.
Yeah, and that's how we build businesses. That's the bottom
Correct.
line. That's how we build businesses. One of the things that Another of the things that impresses me about your work, actually, before I go into that, um, you sort of alluded to it, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into the financial literacy piece, because again, I think it's something that now we're getting better in the industry, but again, traditional finance, personal finance, kind of left that piece, left us a little bit in the dark. It was more like, I remember at least when I was 22 and I showed up, you know, at a bank, at a brokerage house, right? You just met with this person. They were behind the brown mahogany desk. They would ask you a few questions. What do you want? And they would tell you what to do. And then it was like, that's it. There was no education. There was no hand holding. You know, it was like a very distant, again, very transactional. And now we're getting better. And you certainly stand out in the industry as somebody who wants to provide people with the financial literacy, the education, so that whether they work with you or not, right, they have the tool to move forward, to ask the right questions. One of the most horrible things that I see people is, you know, they'll meet with their financial planners. They don't know what they're hearing. They don't know how to ask questions. They don't know what questions to be asked, right? And I always say, nobody's going to care about your money more than you, right? It's your money. It's not you know, he or she, they're working for you, right? But you have to be running this ship. So you have to know what's happening. So talk to us about what, again, I know it's part of your journey, but let's go deeper into what drove you to really make that very intentional part of your business model at Klyman Financial.
There's two sides of it. One is, number one, it's a lot more enjoyable. It used to, so let's just talk about what happened in the evolution of finance for a while. It used to be stockbrokers. Stockbrokers were very sought after. If you got a call from a stockbroker, you were able to meet with a stockbroker. That was a big deal, that you would get access to IPOs and things like that. And all you needed to do was trade money. Then computers came in and ended that legacy conversation of stockbrokers are now just a dime a dozen. Now they don't even really add value, and there's much better jobs in ETFs and mutual funds and index funds and all these other new innovative ideas that basically ended the stockbroker, that before you couldn't get access. So they didn't have to do the work prior to do the business. Then it gets to a point, okay, well, now Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, and all these other places, they won't talk to you unless you have $250,000 and of investable assets, which is not easy to get to. So when you're trying to build financial literacy, it's very hard to have $250,000 of investable assets. That is the real deal.
Right. And for the listener, 1 second, who's maybe like new to this, we mean that you have that extra money. It's not, you know, it's not the money that you need to live or to buy your first home. You know, it's right.
And it's outside of your 401k. If you're in a company, it's not even in your 401k. So now let's say they're great advisors at Merrill and Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all these, Goldman Sachs is out of the wealth management side, but you have all these great investment houses. And let's say 100% of them are great advisors. There's a lot of debate there, but easy to debate. But then you had to be rich to be able to get advice from somebody that actually knew what they were doing. So what happened eventually was that the robo traders came in, the robo advisors came in, and then they started to eliminate a lot of these people. So for them, in order for them to do a lot more work, because a financial advisor can only really max out at a maximum 600 families that they can work with, and they're killing themselves. So number one, to get somebody that can actually help you is really hard. So I went, okay, where is everybody not? Where is everybody not going to be? Because that's where there's opportunity. I went, there's number one, I enjoy financial literacy. I'm able to understand my clients a lot better. I'm able to see the holes, and it helps with understanding where life insurance fits. So I went, every person that speaks to me has to do a holistic financial plan. They have to do it. If they want me for a transaction, that means it's a transactional relationship, and the relationship will go away. So much so, I've taken clients who have given me $5 million, and I've said to my assistant, I said, this is a leased car. He's going to stay with me for 6 months. There's going to be one bad month in the market, and he's gone. 6 months later, Stanley, he's gone. No question. And he's just going to move from advisor to advisor to advisor. So that doesn't, but there's so much onboarding to do that. So it's not worth it. So I went, where's everybody not? And where do I feel I can add the most value? And where do I also feel the most fulfilled? So if you combine those things, it's the conversation of do what you're most passionate about. So I did what I'm most passionate about is helping people really live a more comfortable life. And if you can spend an hour with somebody, and you deal with this every single day from I've seen all the coaching you've done. If you can spend an hour and change the trajectory of somebody's life for the significant better, not that they feel good that day, but you can literally change the trajectory of somebody's life for the significant better, isn't that hour worth your time?
Right.
How
Right.
much is that hour? If you take away the dollar amount, how much is that hour worth? So I went, okay, I know what it means to have nothing, and I know what it means to have a lot. So if I can help people guide them through that, all of a sudden I add value. They stay closer to me. We become friends. Like I call my clients and they call me just because we just chat.
Mm-hmm.
It was the election. We're chatting about the election at 2 o'clock in the morning. We're talking like it's amazing. So, and it has nothing to do with business. It's just, genuinely, I just find these people really amazing, and I feel so fortunate that they work with me. And once I did that, my business exploded to a
Mm-hmm.
point of just growing assets and new clients and new relationships and amazing people that you're able to meet. So, a long-winded way of saying I needed to add a lot of value where people were not adding value, and I need to
Mm-hmm.
make it accessible to the people that want to be empowered. So when
Mm-hmm.
I look at clients, I don't look at a dollar sign. I look at if they are truly resilient and they truly want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's my clientele. I don't care how rich you are, how poor you are, but if you are someone who can handle and tough and grow and build, that empowers me and I can empower them. And then we have a beautiful relationship. And all of a sudden, my clients who are making $200,000 a year, all of a sudden are making $700,000 a year. Or I have a client one of my biggest clients was making $2 million a year, and now since he met me, he said, "Oh, because of you, I make $9 million a year," which
Ooh.
is a significant change. In all honesty, I don't make 9 million a year, but God willing, I'll get there in a couple of years. Um,
Amen.
just so I can fund all the charities that I want to fund. But that's really the main thing is you need to add value in a place where everybody isn't, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to have something that you're passionate about. If you can combine that all, you can make a lot of money, and they can make a lot of money.
Such good, solid best business lessons here. I'm loving what I'm hearing. It's very, very solid. And with that, one of the things, as I was saying before, that really again stands out about your work is that you focus on something that you and we both agree on this, and we're very passionate about this. Is you have people take a very hard look at what their values are. Before we even talk about financial goals, we got to get to the fundamental. What are your values? Now, for the people listening out there, and again, this is not espoused by everybody. Like I said, it definitely was not my experience when I used, many, many years ago when I worked with somebody. And yet it's something that you are very clear on having in those conversations with your clients. What are we talking about when we talk about values? Like, what is a value? How does a person even get clear on them? What is the process here?
So we do this. We're behavioral financial advisors. It's something that means nothing, but actually does something in life. Just the alphabet soup at the end of the names that just nobody knows what they are. It's CFP, PAP. It's all nonsense. But basically, what we have specialized in at the beginning of our process is to do a values analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about making money. Money is the root of all evil, is the common conversation. Money is demons, money is this, money is greed, money is envy, money is everything bad. But what if you were able to connect money with who you are as a person?
Mm-hmm.
Will you be more motivated to make more money? Will you be more motivated to give more money? Every person that we speak with, and probably every person, all has the desire to do more and give more according to their values. It's not necessarily charity. It's not necessarily to their family. But if you can break down, we do this values assessment that we do with every person that we speak with, and I do it in front of hundreds. I've literally done it in front of hundreds of people. So let's just say your values are loyalty is one of your top 5 values.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this with a client, and she said one of her values was loyalty. What did she have in her portfolio? She had Berkshire Hathaway for about 50 years. She's loyal to Warren Buffett. People with values of loyalty don't want to own something that they feel part of.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're designing a portfolio, giving them a story of something they feel part of, that means, and when the market crashes, not if, when the market crashes, and it'll pick back up eventually, they won't sell because they feel part of something. So they're
Right.
able to make more money. So let's say another value of theirs is family. So
Mm-hmm.
now you can design something around a family, which is a college plan, and that will speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
But some people just go, I don't care about college. My kids will figure it out. And I don't care about the family is not in my core value. For me, family is not in my core value. Loyalty was one of my core values.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's loyalty to my family, my faith, things like that. So, so if you can decide, figure out, and just, it's very easy, write down your 5 values that you find most important on a piece of paper, write them down, send it to Yael, and Yael will tell you exactly who you are in
Mm-hmm.
2.5 seconds. But once you find your 5 values, design your money around that.
Right.
So if your values are integrity, and for example, you feel that energy, like the green energy movement is so important, and you want to feel like you're doing good for the world, and that's something that fits you, then don't put your money in sin stocks. For
Mm-hmm.
example, tobacco companies, oil companies. Put your money into stocks and positions that feel better to you for ESG. What that
Mm-hmm.
means is when the market crashes, you won't feel as bad when it goes down. When you're
Mm-hmm.
working for money, you don't feel as bad that you're making more money because you know the money you're making is pumping back into society to help build a greener and better planet. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the ways that you can use your values and align it with your actual money, which will then motivate you to make more money. I feel like I'm an Italian speaking with my hands, but I'm also Jewish and my mom's from Switzerland, so I can
I'm the
Switzerland, so I'm good
same.
with it. But but for those watching, but that if you can align your values with your money, all of a sudden, what everybody else's goals are have nothing
Mm-hmm.
to do with you. Like,
Right.
if stability is a value of yours, stability is directly equivalent to home ownership.
I was gonna say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So exactly that, or more conservative portfolios or income producing portfolios versus if you said freedom, then like for me, for example, I like freedom for me is like independence was my key. I don't like owning homes. I don't like owning property. I don't like investing in tangible properties. I don't like any of that. I just want to be left alone and like do my own thing and move around and be mobile.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you can align your values with yourself. And it's easy, right? It's I wouldn't say it's easy. It's very actionable
Right.
that you write down your 5 values and then think about what fits to you in your values and then call Yael and she'll coach you through it.
And I think there's another component as I'm hearing you translating this to the world of investing. I'm thinking for those of us who are, kind of index funds person, just set it and forget it, just get a total market value index for just, like a BTI, um, we also can take this a step another angle to this, which is even with your decisions as to how you spend and save, investing, yes, true, but if you're not investing in 1 or 2 or 3 or 10, whatever particular stocks, but you're just investing in index funds. If that's your strategy, so we still, when we look at the way we are deciding to save for certain things, like you mentioned, a person who has stability as their value. Well, if we're looking at how they're allocating their money, they're not saving for their a home, they're probably not feeling very good about where their money's going towards.
Correct. And that makes you not want to make more money.
Exactly.
It's like giving to a
Exactly.
charity that you know is wasting it. You won't work for that charity, or it's
Hmm.
working for a company that you're not empowered by.
Right, 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 right. Speaking about values, you alluded to this. You recently dedicated a Torah. One of your values is clearly your faith and the Jewish people, as well as giving. We'll talk about that. But a 1 year anniversary of October 7th, it gave me so much nachas to see the pictures and the videos of you and the community parading with this beautiful Torah on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Tell us about this deeply personal project. At what point did you decide, I want, was it a first for you? Have you ever donated a Torah,
No,
dedicated a Torah before?
I've never written a Torah before. I had in my will that if I die, I'll have to, like, when I die, there'll be a Torah written in my name. But on October 8th, I was talking to a few of my friends. I was really having a hard time. Like I really struggled on the first couple days. I realized that, and I'm not the most religious. This is like not Mr. Religious, like in the world. Like I don't wear yarmulke. Not fully kosher, but I keep Shabbat like very religiously. And and I decided that we needed to do something. And I've always been religious in the army. Like they always made fun of me. I was like the Chazan in the army. And it's like I was like, I'm the least religious guy here, but like I guess I'll do it. Um, but I realized that we need to connect spirituality and physicality, and we need the American community to be the Jewish community to be connected in a global scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That it does not matter where you are, we are all Jews, and that is it, and that's our identity. We happen to be living in Israel, we happen to be living in Argentina, we happen to live in Puerto Rico. It doesn't make a difference where we're living, but we are all Jews, we're all connected. Same way I feel more closer to you than I would somebody else that does exactly what you do, and I just feel like I can be honest and open and real. And we all have that connectivity. So I that's a big passion of mine is connection. So I
Mm-hmm.
went, there's two sides. One is we need to make sure that we are ingrained into eternity, that the Jewish community in New York and around the world understands that we are fully tied to the Jewish community in Israel. So
Mm-hmm.
my original goal was, so we started on October 8th. I interviewed like 100 different scribes to find the right one, find the right person, to find all the right work. And then what I did was I had two of my friends with me, and we each decided we're going to do a quarter, and we're going to leave $180 maximum to people that we loved and cared about that were
Wow.
allowed to donate. So I had clients who have $60 million, and I made them, I said, hey, like Marty, this client of mine, I said, Marty, I'm going to have to hit you up for charity. And he's probably thinking 180,000. I go, I need $180. And he goes, like, I've never asked him for charity before. And he's like, okay, like what do you
What's the catch?
like what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, that's the he's like, can I give more? I was like, no, you can't give more. So I did that and I raised like $14,000 just off my little $180 tickets that I just raised. So I go to my barber, he starts crying and said, I never did anything for my father. I go to my friend and he goes, also Jewish, but he goes, what's a Torah?
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
gosh.
and like another person's like, I didn't even our Torah is like written. I thought they're just books. Like you're talking about people that have Jews that have never
Wow.
done a mitzvah in their entire lives that were able to be a part of something. And I said, and I was going to finish in Be'eri or Kibbutz Re'im, and then bring it back to the U.S. and all our flights got canceled. The Iranians, always
Mm-hmm.
Iranians, um, our they our flights got canceled. So I said, okay, let's do it on October 7th. We had to
Mm-hmm.
fly everything here a month before. I said I saw this Torah that had the names of all the people that have died since October 7th, not just on October 7th. So I said I have to do this. I have to do something like this. I have to make this a one of a kind piece. So I was able to find somebody. I spoke to like 20 different cover makers or whatever they're called, and
Mm-hmm.
I found someone that was able to actually do it. And he bought extra equipment. It was very expensive, which I was happy to pay it. And he was like, I want this project. And I'm also going to send you like the gartel, the inner wrapping of the Torah,
Oh
and with the names of all the hostages in yellow and the ribbon on
gosh.
it. And I was at this Israeli American Council conference. I was sitting in the in like I'm a donor there, so they sit me in the donor section. I'm sitting next to the Nutra family, and I said to
Mm-hmm.
them, "Hey, I have this podcast. You want to come on the podcast? Maybe I can help like get you in the podcast circuit." And they're like, "Yeah." And then I called them up. I said, "Hey, I'm doing this Torah dedication. Can you please come?"
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing led to another, one thing led to another. Everything happened. I literally got the Gartel that day. And I'm sorry if I'm over talking about this. I
No.
literally got the Gartel that the morning of October 7th. Like someone flew it in, Chabad. The Torah was an issue because we couldn't get it into the US. So like everything just happened. And next thing you know, like I post on social media and I'm friends with Michael Rappaport now because of this. And we did a live podcast in front of 600 people, 600 Zionists in the Upper East Side, and he reposted. Next thing I know, I got 30,000. Then somebody else posts 180,000, and next thing I know, I go, I'm thinking there can be a lot of people at this thing, and the cops are they're calling me Erev Rosh Hashanah, 2 hours before Rosh Hashanah, he goes, cancel the parade, cancel what you're doing. You can't do it. It's too crazy. You guys blew it out of proportion. I said, I can't cancel. I'm sorry. Literally trying to cancel this thing. And I'm like, I got a lot of people coming and they're like, oh, you also need a permit. You need this, you need that. I was like, he's like, no Torah truck, no marching. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like all this stuff. And I was like, sorry. And next thing you know, on October 7th morning, no one's calling me. The cops aren't calling me. So I get everything. Everything comes in, and I see like everyone's texting me and asking me like, "Hey, what's going on with this event? Like, is it actually happening?" I go, "Yeah, it's happening." So I walk from 72nd and Second where we finished the tour writing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's done. It's incredible. We walk to 79th and Park, and I'm with I had private security with me, and I say to him, and I go, "I don't see any cops," and the cops didn't show up. So I'm thinking I had 40 armed guards that I paid, like we paid ourselves. And I'm thinking these cops are not here. So I walk up, I say to him, I go, is there 2,000 people in front of me?
Oh
He
my
goes,
gosh.
yeah, there's a lot more than that. And it was over 5,000 people
Oh my
like
gosh.
in and out over the event. And we start marching and we bring the Torah truck that they were like, I mean, they killed me about this Torah truck and they're blasting music. No cops are there. So men plan, God laughs. And then all of a sudden I'm looking back and I go, did they just close Park Avenue? Like, did we just close it? Like
Oh my.
just shut it down? Like, is that just a thing right now? And you see people dancing on their balconies on Park Avenue, dancing to the music. And we just marched there. And it was like it was like, for those who are religious can understand it, it was like 5,000 people were in Shemayim for 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The Nutra family showed up and they spoke so beautifully. And like I was just like an insane person. My kids were there. It was just the nicest. It was, and the Nutra family sent the perfect message. They were the last person that texted me about it. They said it was exactly where Omer wanted them to be to finish October 7th. Their son who's a hostage in Gaza,
Oh
and I
my
was
gosh.
like, that's deep as anything. And that's it. And the Torah will be here forever, and hopefully we can stay remembering what's going on and keep us united. And that's really been my mission.
It's what keeps us alive, you know?
Sorry,
It's our
long-winded way of saying how proud I was to be a part of something and how proud I was that so many people were a part of it.
you know, when we work for God, Yair, he just like we just have to do what we need to do, and he parts the seas. You know, Park Avenue gets closed down even if there's seemingly no cops around. You
It's
know,
crazy.
it's
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 great.
it's it's crazy. And actually, an interesting piece of the way you shared this story that I want to highlight is that you could say, okay, I dedicated a Torah, I gave the money, right? But your involvement, it wasn't just a financial, here's a check, let's do this. The amount of energy and thought and time invested in this, it's an act of tzedakah. Tzedakah is not just the money, it's all of it. It beautified, I mean, it's just beautiful the way you described what you accomplished.
I have to add one part of it. So I'm at the local like kosher restaurant because everything's a hummus stand, and I'm at the local kosher restaurant. I see some crazy person with three goats tied in Upper East Side Manhattan. Just he has
Goats?
goats, three goats in like
Is it
Midtown, like
Korban
Upper East
Pesach?
Side.
Is it
Just
before?
like casually, he just has goats, an Israeli guy, and I'm like, I got to get these goats coming to the Torah dedication. I got to get them, and the cops are calling me, and I'm like really nervous. I'm trying not publicize it as much, but I'm like, all right, it's an animal of its own. And I'm like, hey, can you bring your goats? I'm doing this Torah dedication. And he's like, how about this? We're the motorcycles for Chai group, and we're actually doing a motorcycle like rally down Lexington Avenue on October 7th. How about we bring those? I go, yeah, we'll take that. And next thing you know, we're walking up Park Avenue and there's just motorcycles, and everyone's like, who are you? And my wife was like, Yair, was that you? I was like, yeah, that was me. And I got a lot more. I got a lot more coming. It was like a guy with
But,
goats. You never just talk to people with goats. They have stuff
but
going
you
on.
see, it's all
All
Hashem,
God. It's all
it's all
God.
Hashem,
It
and
was
being
all God.
open to Hashem. Guide me. I'm here to serve you. Okay, I
Correct.
bumped into the guy with goats. Let's go.
Let's
Let's
go.
honor Hashem.
I
Let's
thought
use
it'd be
the
funny to
goats.
have goats. It would be funny to have goats at the
I love it. So talking about tzedakah, evidently it's a big value of yours. And possibly something that maybe you learned at home, you'll tell us. But what I I guess what I want to get at right now is I'd love to explore with you some of the lessons about money that you learned at your parents' home. You gave us a little bit of an introduction to the fact that, you know, your parents struggled financially. But some of the lessons that you learned in, so much of the way we are with money, you're the first one, you know this very well, is, based on the what we learned, we saw as children, right? And maybe there are lessons that served you. Maybe there you found lessons that you were, you decided, I don't want to carry this into my adulthood, that they don't serve me. Why don't you tell us about that? What was your upbringing like, and what are the financial lessons that you learned that shape the way you are with money as an adult?
So you know how you were saying at the beginning of the conversation that you talked about money, like you're comfortable, like you can't really talk about money at the beginning, and it's like a semi-taboo conversation to talk about
Mhm.
money, and that's something that you really empower your people, and I love, and that's why I think you're amazing, and I like admire your work so much because you talk about money. So my dad, when he found out that he went through this financial collapse, that he went, I'm not going to hide it from my wife anymore. My dad works with me now, and it's amazing. And he says, I'm not going to hide this from my wife. And he started talking about money. And our whole life, he always said, we're in a recession. We're in a recession. And we're like, what the hell's a recession? I'm seven.
Mhm.
Like, he's like, we can't go to, you're going to have to pay for camp partially. I was like, pay for
Wow.
camp? Like, what does that mean? I'm, I'm nine. Like, all right, I'm not going to
Right.
camp then if I have to pay for it. So, so he was amazing about the comfort of conversation of money.
Hmm.
And it was not only was it not taboo, it was actually like enjoyed. So when you
Hmm.
know how like you talk to people, you're like, how much money you make, like that was just a conversation that we had. Like what does it mean to be the dean of a university, and like what does it mean to like have debt, and what does it mean to have issues with your home, and what does it mean to like the conversations about money was so amazing that we had.
Hmm.
When you receive in life, we received a lot from local charities. You realize you do not want to receive anymore. You want to be on the right side of the giving train. So
Right.
every time I have these massive expenses on me. My kid's private school alone is $6,000 a month, like just for two of them, and one of them not even 2 years old. And like and I have all these huge expenses. So all I do is, and I said to a client of mine yesterday at a fundraiser, I said I wish I could just write the check for the whole thing that they're looking for. And
Hmm.
like you just want to give. And I think that the warm up of success that I've tasted so far is because I want to give back to the people that have given to me,
Wow.
instead of like, oh, what does it mean to give charity? Like, I know exactly what charity gives. I know
Mm.
exactly what it means when someone gives charity, and you are the recipient of that charity.
Wow.
When I was in the army, for example, someone gave 1,000 shekel, which is not a lot of money, 1,000 shekel to like the clothing store, like whatever, some bad designer or something. I forgot what it was, like Strauss or something. And I think Strauss is a supermarket, but whatever. They gave him 1,000 shekel, and you're like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And it makes you so happy. And I just remember like there was so much stuff that happened in the army. Like I've almost gotten shot, cock gun pointed to my head, like ready to go 4 times in my
Mm.
army career, in a short army career. So I can't imagine how much for the long people. And like someone gave me 1,000 shekel for clothing, and I remember that more. I never even met the person than the other side. Like I remember the kindness that people did, that people would come up to me and just go and buy yogurts and leave them in my fridge, and I didn't even know. Like there was just food in my fridge, and I didn't even know who brought it. And like it
Hmm.
was it was really amazing. So you realize how much when you give, what it actually can do to change the mood of somebody else. And it's not theoretical, it's practical, it's real.
Hmm.
It's real change in someone's life, and you can really add a lot of simcha and happiness to their lives.
So it's obvious that having had the experience of being on the receiving side made you even more mindful and more emphatic about being on the giving side, and how to give properly, and the sensitivity and all that is so important. Now, the part about communication is an outstanding lesson, because usually we hear my father had a financial collapse, or my parents were usually, in credit card debt and they couldn't afford the camps or the this or the tuition, and we were receiving, Shabbos packages to eat, or whatever the story is, yet nobody talked about it. The fact that you're saying that they were transparent, that your father was transparent and was able to bring you guys into the daily struggles, some might argue, well, that's going to traumatize the family even more, because at the end of the day, they know, they feel it, right? But now if you're openly talking about it, and yet I see here that actually the reverse is true. It actually might be a healthier way to deal with, the quote unquote trauma. Maybe now it's not big T trauma, but it's small T trauma, because there was transparency. So I think there's something here that is very, very unusual. Would you agree? Most people wouldn't.
Most people don't, but I also find most people are not in the 1%.
Right.
And the challenging conversations allow you to go beyond your station. And I think we have there's six of us, and it's just reminding me right now, there's six of us. I'm one of six. And my parents had 4 kids in 5 years, then 2 kids 9 years later. My parents are in a very different financial state with the 2 kids that are younger and the 4 kids that are older. The 4 kids were not traumatized by the money at all. At all. It's My dad was very good about, I will share this what it is with you, but you won't, okay, you're not going to be able to, I'm not paying for this, I'm not paying for that. But he never really shared the burden with us. So explaining to your kids what is going on, but not giving them the baggage with it.
The emotional baggage.
Correct. Of
Right.
the stress and like and like when they're yelling, when you're that was a little bit of a yeller, but when he was yelling at you, he wasn't like, I have no money and it's your fault. Like, he wasn't doing that. He was stressed, but he never put money in the equation. And like, we never starved for food. We always had a full fridge. It did not matter how many credit cards we had. We always had that. So like, he didn't limit our life. Like, we wanted to wrestle, so we wrestled. Like, we didn't go ice skating every week. We drove to Florida, and it was like, if you want to fly, pay for it yourself. Like, he didn't bring the stress behind it and the burden behind it, but he also made us very well aware that it's a problem in our house. And the 4 kids, very successful. The 2 kids, not as successful. They're much more codependent on my parents than the 4 kids, who are like all in their different capacities.
Yeah, it really can be a real gift. And the reason I want us to explore this, like we are doing now, is because one of the most common questions that I get asked from parents is, how do I tell my kids no? Like, they cannot have 10 pairs of brand sneakers like their classmates have. We can have one and also go on that vacation we can't do everything, right? And I always tell parents, when you do things in a calm, down to earth way, and also when you look for ideas of meeting them halfway there, it's not a no, it's a, I can help you buy half of the guitar. You'll buy the second half, or I'll pay for the lessons. You'll pay for the guitar, right? Like, it doesn't have to be something that's going to, because everybody tells me I'm going to create a scarcity mindset around my child. I'm like, actually, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
I completely agree. There's a lot of like traditional methods that people think is good in scaring your kids, and it's like, you're like kind of harming your kids when you do that. But like, for example, yeah, when my kids said, because my kids' classmates are like beyond money, it's like
Right.
ridiculous. And I say to him, like, and we can thank God right now we can afford it. We can do whatever we want. We can buy whatever we want. But I say to my son, I say, and he's 3, and I go, okay, yeah, you can have 10. I mean, he doesn't ask for it, but like, you can have whatever you want, another Paw Patrol toy. But let's work for it. If you do this and that, and then we'll start. So I always say, yes, but I give him the journey to get it, because it's not like, I don't mind if someone's worth $100 million that he made from nothing. He can buy whatever he wants. He can buy anything he wants. It doesn't make a difference. But he has to enjoy the journey of it.
Yeah.
Enjoying the journey of acquiring is so valuable than just, I go to Target, my mommy buys me something, I go home, I don't like it, I go to Target, my mommy buys me something, and I go home. And that's really that's very, very unhealthy. And
Yeah.
it's hard. And what you're saying is hard. It's hard not to keep up when all the other kids have versus don't. So like my wife likes sample sales and she likes designer goods, but she likes sample sales. So she makes my kids go with her to the sample sales. They're
Mhm.
young, they don't really understand it. Or she schleps them to Trader Joe's, which is like a mile and a half walk from our apartment, and she makes them feel it. So it's not that everything is just delivered, 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 delivered. She makes them
Right.
go with her. She makes them go to Bloomingdale's to do her returns, which I find insane, but in general, but like she makes them go and they have to sit online. They lose. We took away all screens in the house to like try to
Wow.
limit, like my kids haven't watched a TV show in a month. It's been great.
Good for
Um,
you.
yeah, it was a lot of work at the beginning, but now they wake up and they play with toys like immediately.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just changing habit. But that's how I think parents can help empower their kids to be more successful in life, because you have to give them motivation.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
give them a desire to do things so that they work harder and they want to work harder. If you don't do that, then I'm really scared that a lot of these kids are going to be spoiled and they're not going to be able to stand up on their own 2 feet. And you see it, I see it, too many older people that still can't.
I see it all the time. And going back to our values conversation, emphasizing at home what we choose to invest in. Yes, we could do this, but we really value the land of Israel and we want to take a family trip. So right now we're saving for that. That's not going to scar your child. When you tell them, no, we're not doing that because this is what we're saving for, this is what we're doing in 6 months, or we have your siblings bar mitzvah and we're bringing all of you home for it or whatever it is, right? That's actually very practical life lessons. I was actually, on that note, I was looking at one of my daughter's investment account, and I was like so proud because the truth is, this girl, since the age of 12, has been working in Hebrew school every Sunday. She's worked in camps, she does babysitting, and she keeps very little liquid for herself, and she consistently just gives it to invest it, and she has a significant amount of money, and she's 16. And I was like, you know what, it's the power of starting early, the power of that discipline. I always taught them, look, you don't need that much liquidity, so don't be foolish and keep the $200 that you got paid by Hebrew school, and then it's going to go out the window. Whatever whim want you want from that you're friends like, keep a little bit of amount and be mindful. The rest, stash it away and let it grow. And you know what? It's sinking in for the children. It's something that if we start training them in, it actually, now they see it. Now they're grateful.
Yeah, and you can also, I'm sure how many times you show her like, oh my God, look how much money you made.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to do anything. She's like, really? Like,
I,
wow, I'm rich.
I know. I remember
It-
when my son called me one time, what's the balance in my investment account? And I told him, he's like, wait 1 minute. How much did I make over the last 2 years? I said, this much. He's like, how? I said, in your sleep. In your sleep.
That's the beauty
He's
of
like,
it.
okay, keep doing what you're doing, mommy.
Mom, I trust you. I finally trust you.
It was the
You
funniest
didn't steal my
conversation because
money.
he wanted to buy some books. He wanted to buy some Sephora from a big check that he got, a big payment. And I was like, let's talk about how much money you've made every time that, by investing over the time. And when he saw the amount, he's like, oh, while I sleep, I get it. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'll just keep $50. The rest you can put in the investment account.
It's good. I love that. I love that. And it's also like it's still, you didn't say no. I love
Right.
that you're saying you didn't say no. You just said, here's the menu.
Right.
You make the decision. You're an
Right.
adult. You make the decision, because soon you won't have somebody that will guide you through it. So you need to have that trained into them. And it needs to be part of their upbringing. And I think if you start it, it's not just investing early, it's literacy early. It's
Yeah.
getting part of it. That's why there's such a big push. I think high school literacy is too late.
Too
I,
late.
I think elementary school and middle school, like we have like all these different courses. Why can't we just have it doesn't even have just a language course. What
Yeah,
is financial languages?
for
Like what
sure.
is the word stock mean?
Yep.
Like people don't even know what stocks are. People don't even know
Yep.
what bonds are. People don't know what the index is. Like these are really
Right.
complicated words that if you get them young and it's part of your vocabulary, like my son knows what a mortgage is. He's 3 years old. Like he actually knows what a mortgage is. And like
Mhm.
most people don't know what a mortgage is. Most people think a
Mhm.
mortgage is something on your house. No, a mortgage is actually a piece of paper
It's a
that's a lien
loan.
on your home. Like that's what a
Mhm.
mortgage is. And like
Mhm.
it's if you can get them really young, it just becomes part of
Yeah.
them and they enjoy
Yeah.
it. It's also fun. Like when your
It's
kids
fun.
are successful, it's fun.
you'll get a crack out of the story. When one of my daughters was in fifth grade, they were doing a unit in economics. And she tells me, and then the teacher called me and told me the funny, she tells me at night, she says, we're learning about economics. And my teacher was talking about the stock market. And I told her that I invest in index funds. Fifth grade.
Yeah, and the teacher's like, "Wait, where are you investing? Like, can you give me any index tips?" And they're like, "SP1, like you're the VO, like
Oh
you're
my gosh,
yeah,
so
yeah,
funny.
yeah." The teachers are always, I'm sure they're asking her for tips.
Hysterical. And same thing with, by the way, with Meister. So important to teach your kids, 10% goes, it's not ours to keep. It's just somebody who needs it. Where do you want it to go? You want it to go to friendship circle? You want it to go to your school, to your yeshiva? Where do you want it to be? But it needs to be pulled out. It's not a choice, period.
I I also think that when they give that money, they also have to do some action with the charity.
I love that.
I
Going
think
back to
that's
the way the Torah
correct.
dedication.
Correct. I think that's a really important piece. That like you can't write a check and oblige yourself from the actual work behind it. I think like there's homeless there's a like a food kitchen next to us, like right
Mm-hmm.
next right like down our block. And we like my wife will walk around. I go, no, he's gonna walk in it. And he asked me like, oh, what's going on with these? But like they don't have enough food. And they don't have enough food. And one day we'll volunteer, too young, but we'll volunteer and help give them food. And he's like, oh, what? Like he's just getting them in that mindset. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like Friendship Circle is an amazing, amazing organization,
Yeah.
and they do so much like kindness for people that, and there's people that like I know a lot of like like marriages that were made in Friendship Circle. So if you're giving money, you can also volunteer your time
Right.
and you can find love. Like if you're
Right.
single and you're listening to this, go and join the organizations and get involved, and you're giving money. So
A
you're like
hundred percent.
ultimate person that an organization is looking for. And okay, so you did this or you watched a movie on Netflix. Like
Right.
in the end of the day, you're tired just the same. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're a little more tired, but you're also like happier in life. So I think it's valuable.
Yeah, yeah. How we use our time is so, so important. And going back to serving God and, like, God, I'm here to serve you. What do I need to do today? It's definitely not Netflix. Nothing wrong
No,
with, some once in a while, but we gotta have our priorities straight. Now,
correct.
talking about all this, I have to be honest that I definitely made my share of financial mistakes in my 20s. And like most people, I've also had my financial challenging times. How about you, Yair? Any mistakes that are memorable or any financial challenges that taught you important lessons? Well, you talked about your upbringing, but anything that stands out like, oh, I don't want to go through that again. I'm not making that mistake.
I think the most important piece, and it's actually very like this concept is very popular right now, but I don't think people are really capturing what it means. The most important piece is knowing who to trust. So when I first graduated and I was like getting into the financial services business, and I saw something with some people that I was this one person that I trust referred me to this person referred me to that person, and I gave them $40,000. It was like everything I had. Like it was just, I just gave them so much money. And then long story, whatever, it turned out it wasn't like a scam, but I had to get out of it for different reasons. And they just stole like
Mm,
of the 40, they gave me like 13 back.
hmm
So I lost $27,000. And I was like, wow, this is a great moment in time to know what it means to actually trust someone. So the thing I realized is I need to do my own due diligence and my own work to know who to trust.
hmm
I cannot just, a referral is great, but a trusted referral, it needs to come from a trusted referral. So there's like I used to wrestle growing up, and that's why I got my competitive. I get a lot of confidence from wrestling, and there was a coach of Lehigh, he ended up passing away, Lehigh University, one of the best coaches in the country. He always said, "Practice isn't perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect." So you need to
Mm,
have a quality referral source to refer you to something else. So it's like, oh, the plumber is telling me to invest in with this person, not usually the right person for me to invest in. So I find that I had to do my once I did that, once I made that mistake, it was a small mistake, and I mean it was a lot of money for me at the time, but
at the time, right?
at the time, but like by the time I realized what I was in and like the people. it didn't matter. Like it didn't really affect me. And I just went, all right, let's move on. But the whole concept of it made me realize that I need to do my own research. I need to make my own. I can't just trust, and I can't just get scared high with the numbers. And because this person, like the constant, I'm sure you deal with this all the time. Oh, I there's this guy down the street from me, and he has a yacht, and I want to give him money because he's going to invest it for me.
I know.
He has a yacht because he's using your money to buy it.
Exactly.
And that's why he has the yacht. Or he's charging exorbitant fees on his hedge fund that
Hmm.
because a hedge fund allows you to charge 10 times the fees of a traditional financial advisor. So he has a hedge fund, which doesn't even mean anything. And most hedge funds go bankrupt anyway. So it's like being understanding on the type of quality of person that I am in bed with, the same
Hmm.
thing as I do with my doctors. I won't go to a doctor unless I get qualified referrals in.
Right.
That's or accountants or like I won't work my accountant. I didn't work with him. I never met him cold. I met him through my old accountant, and I knew my old
Mhm.
accountant knew him. So there was a good connection. It's been a great relationship of mine. Same thing with attorneys. Like weave through networking instead of just hoping for the best online or through a friends that this guy has a nice Rolex.
Right. And I will even say that even with a trusted referral, you still have to do your due diligence.
Correct.
And
Correct.
this goes back to your passion for financial literacy and education. Like I was saying before, nobody's going to care about your money more than you. You have to do your research. You have to do your due diligence. You have to make informed decisions. Now, talking about decisions, and maybe this will be lead us into our wrap up. We're recording this after Donald Trump won the election. For those in the audience who are curious about what might that mean for their finances, do you have any predictions yet here? What do you think people should be aware of? And any financial moves that maybe you think they should consider now during this new administration?
So the Trump administration has been and I did the same conversation with the Biden administration, and I really am an apolitical advisor. The Trump administration is very, very focused on reduced regulations, reduced taxes, and foreign investment to the U.S. The market the day after Trump got elected or it won the election, the market was up 3%.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a lot of indicators the day after the market, how the market reacts. Like it really just tells you.
Yeah.
And the market likes Trump. Why? Let's break down why they like Trump. Forget about if you like Trump, which that's a personal conversation to have. Uh, in New York, it's a personal conversation for a lot of people with therapists to have, but it's another good tax scheme or money scheme. So the first thing that Donald Trump is talking about is lowering the corporate tax. Does
Mm-hmm.
that mean anything to the personal consumer? I don't think so. But does that mean anything to the profits of the companies? So
Exactly.
everything is based off of profits. Stocks are based off of profits.
Right.
So if he's
Dividends. Right.
correct, dividends, return of profits, stock price. So if you are looking for companies that have, let's say, potential for growth that are very tax heavy, that companies that hold a lot of cash in their C corp, and you can I recommend everybody ChatGPT it, but verify it's ChatGPT is writing it correctly. These terms, but that is a big thing for the stock market. That's number one. If you want to look and analyze companies, and you're somebody who likes to analyze companies, I personally don't, but this is another way you can look at what are the very, very highly regulated industries in
Mm-hmm.
the US. Talk about pharmaceuticals, talk about financial. You could talk about the car industry, also very highly regulated. These are very highly regulated industries. Donald Trump prides himself on regulation. Now, one thing to note with Donald Trump is he is an insane person. That is not, I don't think anyone debates that, but he is an action and a very effective policy regulation cleaner, cleaner upper or whatever you want to call it. So if you look at industries that are very highly regulated, if the regulation comes off and the red tape comes off,
Mm-hmm.
what will happen to the companies? Typically, they'll have more profits. They'll be
Right.
unburdened by that. And the third side is this is a actual tax point and where people will go, and this is a tax strategy that people can take home. Donald Trump is talking about lowering the capital gains tax. There's two sides that he's talking about. One is raising the SALT deduction, which is the amount of taxes you can deduct when you own a home, because he wants more home ownership.
Mm.
So 10,000 was, it used to be unlimited. If you pay $40,000 in real estate taxes, you can deduct $40,000 in taxes. Donald Trump, on the last time during his last tax regulation and legislation, sorry, he brought that down to 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says unlimited is too high, 10,000 is too low. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
something in the middle. So
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you're understanding, number one, that you're going to get some tax savings on your real estate property. So potentially owning could be a good advantage here. And the second side of it is also and that's one side. So knowing about what property is going to happen. But the second side, a second tax strategy, so I'm giving a twofer, is capital gains tax for high income earners is pretty high. It's about 25%. And the
Mm-hmm.
lower income earners you are, it goes lower. He is talking about reducing your capital gains tax. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are somebody right now with a lower income, and wait for new tax legislation to come out first and consult your tax advisor, you can potentially convert your IRAs into a Roth IRA when your capital you're not, sorry, not your IRAs. You can potentially sell some of your positions
Mm-hmm.
and put money into a Roth IRA if you want to, or if you know that you're going to live off of your stock portfolio and you're in your 70s and 80s and you don't want to pay this high tax, start selling some of it now while taxes are lower.
Right.
So the whole conversation between IRA and a Roth IRA is, when do you think taxes are going to be lower? In the Trump administration, it looks like taxes are going to be lower.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like there's going to be a lot more tax favors. No tax on tips is huge for lower income
Wow.
earners. No
Mm-hmm.
tax on Social Security
Mm-hmm.
is enormous. No tax on Social
Yeah.
Security
It's
is
big.
enormous. It's
Mm-hmm.
big. And why is it? Because and one thing, and sorry if I'm going off a tangent,
No, this
why
is
did
good.
they say no tax on Social Security? Wouldn't you think that that's such a huge tax and that's going to add to the deficit? Though the people who are living off of Social Security primarily are seniors. Seniors pay a tax bracket of 10 to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's making $50,000 a year, the IRS is giving $7,500. So instead of having to give the seniors more money into Social Security, which will balloon the deficit, it actually will reduce the costs than having to put more money into Social Security, and for a very small cost of not getting taxed on that
Right.
money. So it's
Right.
actually a tax savings for the government. It's actually saving them for the government because they're going to have to pump more money into Social Security to keep up with inflation. So the takeaways are, one is, if your capital gains tax and your income is lower, it might be a good time if new legislation comes out, which it looks like it will if he takes all three. That's one, to potentially start moving money and selling those long-term capital gains. Second side is
And
potentially
sorry, and put it into a Roth, right?
put it into either a Roth, or just sell it and then buy a similar position. So if you owned American Airlines, buy Delta, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is called tax harvesting. So
Mm-hmm.
you can either do that. You can also potentially have a huge savings if you do own home ownership, that now home ownership becomes a lot more attractive because of the SALT deduction. And these are important terms to look up, can go up, and that can really affect the amount of tax savings that you'll have. So for tax and for regulation and for that, Trump is running on that. And that's why when the questions come out, do you trust Trump more in the economy? The answer is, like, I think it was like 7-9%. Yes.
Yeah.
And there really isn't many people that can say no on that,
Right.
because these are small wins that the American people can have for huge wins for the government to have to work on that deficit.
Mm-hmm. 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 That have an impact on the, you know, typical middle class American individual.
Correct.
This is very important. Now, Yair, I didn't give you a heads up on this, but I think you'll be game for it. I finish all of my interviews with what I call Jewish Money Matters fill in the blanks. And this is the part of the show where I give you an open-ended statement and you finish it with whatever comes to mind. You're game for it?
I'm always game. Always
Amazing. Okay. When I give Meiser or tzedakah, I like to give too.
Chabad.
Oh, you're speaking to my
I
heart.
know. They're just, it's the most value. They're just so good at it. They just
I know.
really, and yeah, that
Yeah.
I would say the most money I give to is Chabad. I gave the Torah to Chabad. Like they're just amazing. And even like, even when I help people in Israel and all that stuff and all the money I raised, the Chabad helped me so much. Like they're just my guys.
Wow.
They're so committed. George
Yeah.
Rohr always said the best
I was going
value.
to tell you
Yeah.
what George
Yeah.
says.
You
Say
say
it,
it. You
say it.
say it. Yeah. So George Rohr had talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
And we should get him on our both my podcast and your podcast would be amazing.
Yeah. He's a
And
close friend. I'm
oh
scared he's going to tell me no. We know each
no,
other
he's
for
not going to
many
say no. He's
years.
such a nice guy. And he
I know
said
the best.
there is no value better with your dollar than giving to Chabad. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I love to give to Chabad, even if I use Chabad, not necessarily into their Chabad house, but into like, hey, I want to give to this charity. What do you think? How, like this person, the Chabad's always game. So, like, they're my primary like go to because you know that they're like, they're as
Yeah.
honest as they come. They don't care if they don't have any money. They don't have any money.
Mhm.
And they're just so efficient with it.
Yeah, George always says it's the biggest I when you're a business person, you think in return on investment. If I want to get the highest return on my investment, it's with Chabad.
It's the
Um,
best.
so yeah, I actually did not know that your Torah went to Chabad. Was it Chabad of the Upper East Side?
About young professionals. I wanted a Torah that was going to get
Nice.
used. They needed a third Torah, and I wanted a Torah that was going to be a symbol. And he's the biggest, Yosef Wilhelm. He's the biggest Chabad young professionals in the world.
Nice.
I've known him for 10 years. He's been a big part of my life. I'm not necessarily go to that community, but he always, as for charity, he always says, you don't give to charity for what you can get. You can give to charity for what they can give. That
Yeah. Oh,
he's
I
just
love that.
like amazing. And I say to him all the time, and I said to him and his wife, I said, like, you guys were the perfect vessel to hold this one of a kind Torah.
Wow, beautiful. Well, I'd love to make more money because I have a feeling I know the answer.
Because I like to, it's easy. I'd like to give more. I'd like to
Yeah.
make more money because I'd like to give more. That's really the truth. I'd like to when there was an issue with helmets in the IDF, like it killed me, and I raised over 1.3 million dollars from like friends, clients, and stuff.
What?
Let me a little
Wow.
more. And I was like, I wish I could just like someone calls me and says, "Hey, we need helmets because we're going to Gaza tomorrow," and I could just write how many helmets you need? Oh, 20. Yeah, I'll write that check. Like I just wanted to take that off.
Yeah.
Um, that's really what I'd like to do. I don't think I would be spoiled with it. God gives me a lot of chesed and a lot of abundance, so I'm very appreciative of it. And I just, the more I could get, the more I could give, and I would give.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I wish I'd learned about money growing up is,
It's fun to make it.
oh, I like that. It's true. We got to get
Uh,
rid of this. It's so hard, right? Like I tell people
it's
like,
fun.
don't talk like that. If you talk like that, you're making that into your reality.
Yeah, yeah. It's really,
It can't be,
it's
you got to change your mindset. It's fun. Enjoy it. Go, enjoy the ride.
yeah, it's the ride. It's the ride. Like it's just it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And also when you can scale your business and you make money
Mhm.
when you're like your son was all excited because he made money when he was sleeping. When you can make money when you're
Well, he
sleeping,
was
it's
sitting in
just
yeshiva learning Torah. His money's
that's the
growing.
key. That's those guys always have the most money. But
Uh,
that's the key. That's the key of it all.
cute, cute, cute. Money, spiritual or physical?
It's I don't know. That's a hard question. Is it one or the other?
I'm a both. You can be on the both camp.
I'm a both because I'm a both because it's part of life. It's part of
Yeah,
circulation. So it's the same thing as gold, spiritual, physical. We put gold in our own Hakodesh. We put gold
right.
in other places. So if we use it for spiritual, it's a physical item that can be used for spiritual so easily. Like
Yeah.
like immediately we could transfer. That's why tzedakah is such a one of the big things because we could just you can take something physical and just bam, all of a sudden it goes straight to heaven.
I agree. Something I splurge on unapologetically is,
Travel, no question.
oh,
No
nice.
question. I went to Puerto Rico the other week. It was fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Did you go to the Chabad house?
of
It's really
course.
nice. It's really
Of
nice.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. It's amazing. Yeah, the travel is I've been to 45 countries, couple territories also. Most of it I did on my own. My son's been to 8 countries and he's been to like 8 countries, separate countries, some multiple times. So travel for me, my goal is to go to every country in the world. Right now, my it's a little tough with 2 babies, but I'll get there.
That goes with the freedom value, for
That's
some people, the traveling, right?
that's what it's all about. It's all about not being
Yeah,
burned down or not being burdened down.
yeah. You're a saver or spender?
I'm a saver.
You were always, well, yeah, you kind of
Yeah,
told us that
kind
you
of
had to.
kind of have to. Now I probably spend a little bit more, but I spend on what I find. I spend on my kids. I'm happy to spend. You actually taught me something really important, which I loved.
I did.
Yeah, you did, and you teach a lot of people. I watch your podcast. I watch your clips and things like that. And me and you have mutual friends with Shabbos Kestenbaum, and you should have him on the podcast. He's a good guest. I can make the video
Great.
if you want.
Thank
Um,
you.
so you said something that we are so lucky to be able to send our kids to private school. And
Hmm.
I spend $6,000 a month on private school. I'm very proud of it that I'm able to handle it because we couldn't, like, other people paid our private school growing up. So, and I said, I'm like, I'm so lucky that I'm able to actually have this opportunity to spend money on private school for my kids. Like, what
Hmm.
a gift. And so
Yep.
many people don't have this gift. There's so many Chabad houses in Nicaragua that are suffering and they just want to give their kids the best life, but they know that they're on a higher calling. Or there's so many people that are lost in Kansas that just want it. And we're so fortunate that I can even go, oh, well, I actually don't like their teaching, but I like this person's teaching. Like I can be even a snob when it comes
Hmm.
to my kids' private schools.
Right. Yeah. It's important. And again, it goes back to the use of language, right? How grateful I am that I get to spend this money in something that's really valuable to me, Jewish continuity, Jewish education, whatever that means for you. Instead of, you always hear the complaint, oh, it's so expensive. It's so expensive. Like, again, what do you
Cares?
want? You're not getting
Cares? It's not
Walmart, you're getting Neiman Marcus.
correct. Who cares? You find a institution, an organized institution that will automatically give your kids a lifestyle, a quality of life. Where else are you going to get that? And if
Hmm.
you're a good person, if you're I was taught this young, and I could be wrong, but if your kids are not great people, typically the parents are not great people. So if
Hmm.
your kids are good people, you are a good person. So like
Hmm.
you have to do everything you can to make your kids good kids, and it's so crucial. And like you can tell when you really put efforts in, like how many kids are like, I love my parents. They were with me every day. They took me here. They did this with me, and we just had such a great childhood, and they become happier people, and they want that for their kids. So
Yeah.
like it's so valuable, it's so important, and there's no price to put on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Yair, today I'm most grateful for.
I'm most grateful for the connection of the Jewish community
Wow.
right now.
Wow.
And I'd say that with my kids, my wife, my community, my friends, there is nothing more to it. There's nothing better than the connection that the Jews have to each other in the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
We
We're
all found each other because of this
hmm
this little rubber band that ties us all together that nobody's allowed to ever escape. We don't even allow for conversions because that band is so intrinsically in us that sorry, you can't you were Jewish. You try to pretend you were Jewish, you're Jewish forever. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. We're very blessed and I think more than ever we're feeling that it's become more apparent how important that reality, the fact that we are one, how important it is to live with that consciousness. Yeah, Yair Klyman, thank you so much. Tell listeners where we can find you, where we can consume more of your content. You also have a beautiful podcast. I was at the pleasure of being in it. Tell us everything so we can be
So
connected.
I my podcast is called Resilient Riches. We have about 1,500 5-star reviews on Spotify, so check it out. We've had amazing guests like Yael on was my top, and then we've had other guests that like Julia Hart and Michael Rappaport and Michael Dixon from Stand With Us and some really amazing people. And we talk about money and we talk about business ownership. We talk about Jewish resilience. And that's that side. So then you can follow me. I'm very easy to get a hold of. Yair Klyman, just Yair Klyman anywhere. You'll see me. But the main thing for me that I ask for all the listeners is don't forget that we are all connected and that we all need to continue staying part of this Jewish community, and that our Jewish community in Israel right now is really, really suffering. And people gave a lot of money last year and all last year because of the need, but that need has not gone away,
Right.
and these people are really suffering now. The difference is we've become a little bit more immune to it. We don't cry as many tears when a soldier dies in Lebanon. Last month was the worst month of
I
the
know.
war. 53
I know.
soldiers died. We've never had that. So I just ask that people stay connected, um, and stay united. And if you do need advisory, like financial advisory, not as much, and coaching, reach out to professionals. Like there's a lot of people that really can help you. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, there's a lot of people. So I think that's crucial, and you can do so much more, no matter where you are. We can all do this together, and it's fun and have a great life and do good things together. And that's my takeaway for everyone. But yeah, Yair
Yair.
Klyman, only this audience will know how to spell the first name. Everybody else doesn't.
Yair Klyman, always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for the Jewish people, the Jewish community, and for all your wonderful work helping us be financially literate and educated. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Al, thanks so much for having me on, and love seeing your success.